Brigadier Retired Ijaz Shah, Excellency Masood Karimpur, Chief Branch UNODC, Ambassadors, High Commissioner, distinguished guests, dear. Next, please.
Now that we have formally launched the Pakistan's terrorism prevention program, I would like to request
Prevention Branch of UNODC, Mr. Masood Karimipur, who has joined us from Vienna. I take this opportunity also to acknowledge the efforts and dedication of Dr. Jeremy Milsom, UNODC's country representative, for working together with the Ministry of Interior for developing this important program. The Pakistan's Terrorism Prevention Program was developed after holding comprehensive consultations with relevant stakeholders at both federal and provincial level. By incorporating their inputs and feedback, and the program has been tailored to meet the needs and requirements of all the stakeholders. With implementation of activities under the program, support would be delivered to all provinces across the country for enhancing skills and knowledge of criminal justice officials, including law enforcement, prosecution, and judiciary, for strengthening the rule of law, governance, and promoting human rights while protecting and supporting victims of terrorism. Ladies and gentlemen, our envisaged activities under youth and community engagement through strategic communication would foster greater trust and partnership between police and the communities, while specialist training would be imparted to investigators and prosecutors for countering the financing of terrorism. All of this key work would be underpinned by aiming to ensure our international cooperation, especially terrorism-related cases, through the central authority established at the Ministry of Interior under the Mutual Legal Assistance Criminal Matters Bill 2019, recently passed by the National Assembly and submitted to the Senate of Pakistan. Importantly, the Pakistan's Terrorism Prevention Program would encourage provinces to adopt a harmonized approach and common practices in preventing and countering terrorism, while enhancing information sharing and coordination amongst the stakeholders. The Ministry of Interior has developed a comprehensive counter-terrorism strategy under the framework of the National Action Plan and National Internal Security Policy, which are presently being implemented successfully in conjunction with other provincial and federal entities. The expected results of the program would assist and contribute towards the implementation of these national initiatives. In the end, I would like to again appreciate the support of UNODC along with that of international community and reaffirm the commitment of Pakistan in working together with our partners in preventing and countering terrorism. I thank you all.
Grateful for your kind remarks, Mr.
International community, provincial authorities, and Pakistan civil society, who all have honored us with your presence today and indication of support to this initiative. Welcome, and I bring greetings of the Executive Director of the UN Office on Drugs and Crime in expression of our full support to the government and society of Pakistan in launching today what I think is a great and example-setting, indeed, model for how the international community and countries can cooperate to provide a comprehensive, whole-of-society, whole-of-government response to the threat of terrorism. That said, it doesn't stop at the borders of any one country. We have come to understand the threat of terrorism to be truly global in nature, truly requiring global and cross-border cooperation in order to effectively respond to it. At every step of the way, whether it's at the very beginning of radicalization, fundraising, spreading messages of hate on the internet, moving guns and explosives and fighters across borders, and in the end, mobilizing attacks against innocent civilians, all of it requires an international response because all of it, in one way or another, crosses borders. And so that requires that we truly commit to an international response. And here today, we have just such an indication. We have some 60 distinguished officials from many countries, friends of Pakistan, who are here to indicate their interest, political support, and some financial support, which will then facilitate the implementation of the program we are launching today. Let me recognize first the support of the European Union that had facilitated the implementation of an earlier program for strengthening the capacities against terrorism in KPK, and as well for the phase 2 of this program, which will then bring the same capacity building endeavor to the Sindh province. Additional support has been provided by Canada and Japan. And UNODC generally enjoys support from many countries across the world to develop programs of capacity building. Indeed, under the UN Global Counterterrorism Strategy, which, as you know, was unanimously adopted in the months that followed September 11, 2001, under Pillar 3 of the Global Counterterrorism Strategy, which focuses on building the state's capacity to respond on their own to the threat of terrorism. UN Office on Drugs and Crime was mandated by the General Assembly to provide technical assistance to member states to do that. And since then, we have delivered training in special skills, analytical tools, recognition of illicit financial flows that fund terrorism, and so on, to 30,000 plus officials and civil society. And we think that based on this very dedicated response, we can, and indeed we have, saved lives. We often hear about terrorist attacks that take place, and the headlines are grabbed by attacks that do take place. But headlines never report that terrorist attacks that did not take place because of the strengthened capacities of governments, because of international information sharing and cooperation that we help facilitate. And I can tell you from speaking to national authorities and from knowing firsthand about actual cases that there are many terrorist attacks that did not take place and thousands of lives that were saved exactly because of this kind of international support to governments to strengthen their capacity. And these tools are what UNODC delivers. These specialized skills to counter and to prevent terrorism is where we add value. And so we are delighted that today's launch of the program indeed touches upon the main pillars where capacity is needed, not just in Pakistan, but everywhere. And by that I mean in every country, regardless of where the country is in a regional context or economic context. First, the advancement of skills of investigations, prosecutions, and adjudication of terrorism cases. Establishing a policy platform for helping victims of terrorism. To promote youth engagement so that at-risk youth, at risk of violence, antisocial behavior, drug use, and yes, radicalization to terrorism can be spotted early on. An ounce of prevention truly is better than a pound of cure. And of course, human rights needs to be a central concern in how we respond to terrorism. And if you want to find out who was behind any terrorist attack, follow the money. Follow the illicit financial flows that facilitated that. Work your way up the chain of command and identify not just the bombers, but who organized the bombers, who recruited them, who inspired them. And to do that requires an advanced set of skills to search for evidence that is often in digital form. Many investigators are challenged by their inability to access data that is on electronic platforms or on servers half a world away. We have provided specialized solutions to those specialized problems. And finally, this program also enhances international cooperation at the regional level and at the global level. That said, it will not go anywhere without the commitment and the support of the international community. So let me close by thanking the government of Pakistan for the seriousness of purpose and the commitment to this issue that they have brought to this partnership. Let me thank the international partners that have to date funded our program implementation, and I implore every country who's interested in stability and security in this region and beyond to consider partnership with UNODC to launch this particular program and to defeat terrorism together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Masood, for enlightening us on the overall objective.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Excellencies, Ambassadors, High Commissioners, Mr. Masood Saab, Mr. Jaming, the local and the head of this program in Pakistan, other members of UNODC, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and very good morning. I am pleased to come here today. Yesterday, in fact, it was only yesterday that I was told by my staff that I am invited for this seminar. And I am again very grateful to Mr. Masood and his delegation. They visited me yesterday and we had a long discussion, not very long discussion, but unexpectedly long, what we appreciated. We had a very good discussion about the UNODC program. Now, as far as the commitment of Pakistan government is concerned for this program and the Ministry of Interior, you must have realized that there have been total 5 speakers, and out of 5, 3 are from the Ministry of Interior. So that is the importance which we attach to this program. Secondly, I am not going to restrict myself to this, what I have been given. I thought I will speak my heart out. And then, while speaking my heart out, I will not only restrict myself in the English language, I will use the army language. And when we say the army language, we make sure that the people understand it may be English, Urdu, or Punjabi. So I'll make sure that because I am an army officer, so I will restrict to the army language. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you must have seen this terrorism. Terrorism, as far as the unrest and as far as the battles and the wars are concerned, ये तो मेरा ख्याल है started from right the day one, जब बाबा आदम सलाम पैदा हुए थे. So as far as unrest in the world is concerned, that started when the human being came into existence. Now, terrorism is a phenomenon which was not probably we used to go for the war, but the terrorism as it happens today in the world was not to be seen, let us say, about 50 years back. Now, I'll not go into the 17th or 18th century. You people are all, I'm sure you are very well read and you know the history of the mankind. But I'll just restrict after the World War I, World War II. Then we had the wars in the Middle East. Then there were certain events which had taken over the events, what happened in this world. And that is in 74, 70s, early, when the oil in the Middle East was used as a weapon. Then after that, that changed the world. Then an event took place that was 79, the Russian coming into Afghanistan. And when Russia came into Afghanistan, again it changed the world. Then the world started to confront the superpower, not in the battlefield, but otherwise they launched an operation in which the Pakistan state became the frontline state. And then the people from all over the world came here. They were trained, funded, and sent back to Afghanistan to fight the Russians. That again changed the world. But I don't know, I'm not a very well read if changed the world or not, but certainly it changed this portion of the world. That is the Southeast Asia, the India subcontinent, Iran, Afghanistan, and then we face first time this, the terrorism, the phenomenon of terrorism, because I still remember Pakistan was a very peaceful country. You could sit. Until 79, I can tell you, then I did my staff college in 79, and we were coming back to Lahore, but we came from Quetta, we went to Kandahar, then Kabul, and then Peshawar, and then came to Lahore. So it was such a peaceful country. So the coming of Afghanistan, Russia and Afghanistan, and then I'll not go into the detail. Then that 10 years of the period when the Russia went out of Afghanistan, this area of the world changed itself, and we got this, the terrorism in the form, whichever form it is now. Then I thought, as we were discussing, that there is a difference between the terrorism and the crime. The crime in the society is committed, the first thing is the injustice. If the society do not get the justice, then the crimes take place. And the second reason for the crime is the economic reason. Crime is absolutely different than the terrorism. Terrorism, you have a bigger aim, and then you have the motivation of the people. And you need a lot of money. And when you need a lot of money for terrorism, that is how the money that comes in, the drugs trade, and the drugs money, and all ill-gotten money, which is used for the terrorism. So this is how the terrorism starts. Now, these are just the basic things which I was talking about. I'm very happy that we are going in the in the execution of this prevention of terrorism. But as I requested Mr. Masood yesterday, that we must spend some sort of a funds and effort in prevention of this, education of the society. Now that is very important, gentlemen. For any prevention of the crime, terrorism, until and unless you motivate the society people, it is not possible for the government to face the threat, threats are there. For example, we have certain police officers sitting here. Let us say the province of Punjab, I am just giving you my experience when I was the Home Secretary. Now the province is almost about 12 crore people. So if you have the ratio of the police and the public over there, it is very less. So until and unless we started a project in the community policing. We inducted the civil society into that, and we were able to achieve the successes in various districts. So likewise, I will request the UNDC, the people, that some portion of this fund must be spent on educating the society. That is very important. Then some fund must be spent on the rehabilitation of the affected of these people, terrorism. You know, the people who are affected in terrorism are the witnesses, the judges, or as we have lost almost about 80, 90,000 people. And out of that, 30, 40,000 people are in the uniform fighting the terrorism. So all their families and, their rehabilitations. So that portion, some portion should be spent on that as well. So at the end, I will say that this subject is very close to my heart because I have served in the anti-terrorist force also. I have served in the drugs narcotics force also. I have been serving in the law enforcement agency also. So it's a very comprehensive strategy. And the last request is, again, I am sure you are much more educated than the people who are working in this. They have the plan. You know, when we define the criminal system, we define the criminal system like this, that when the crime is committed, the criminal or the crime system starts. You know, in our country, we first register the FIR, then we go for the investigation, then we go for the prosecution, then the man is convicted, and once he is convicted, he is sent to the jail. And once he goes to the jail performance is to be seen that once he comes out, he is a better citizen. So likewise, if we start doing that, we only touch the prosecutions, or if we go and touch only the reforms in the jails, that means we are not dealing with the problem in totality. So my second recommendation is, sir, that fighting the terrorism, we should deal with this problem in totality from A to Z. At the end, sir, I pray my good wishes for this program, and inshallah ta'ala, you have seen that the government is always there, and all the support from the government and the Ministry of Interior to make this program a success. Thank you very much, gentlemen.